Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Good morning.
Good morning. Today is today, and actually I think as silly as I just realized, we sat under probably one of the only evergreen trees. When so many of the trees around us, you can probably see leaves falling off the trees, and I thought, yeah, we'll sit under some trees that show the autumnal nature of the world at the moment. And here we are in front of an evergreen tree. I only just realized that.
Today is the auspicious disappearance anniversary of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila
Jai,
Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai. And what better to do on Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day than
Read his wonderful books.
read his books and remember him. Thank you.
Alright, Canto 3, Chapter 29, Text 32.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Text 32. Better than the Brahmana who knows the purpose of the Vedas is he who can dissipate all doubts, and better than him is one who strictly follows the Brahminical principles. Better than him is one who is liberated from all material contamination, and better than him is a pure devotee who executes devotional service without expectation of reward. Prabhupada. Artagya Brahmana refers to one who has made a thorough analytical study of the Absolute Truth, and who knows that the Absolute Truth is realized in three different phases, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And there's squirrels sitting on the bench next to us listening now.
Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan.
Oh, sorry. If someone not only has this knowledge, but is able to clear all doubts if questioned about the Absolute Truth, he is considered better. Further, there may be a learned Brahmana or Vaishnava who can explain clearly and eradicate all doubts. But if he does not follow the Vaishnava principles, then he is not situated on a higher level. One must be able to clear all doubts and simultaneously be situated in the Brahminical characteristics. Such a person who knows the purpose of the Vedic injunctions, who can employ the principles laid down in the Vedic literatures, and who teaches his disciples in that way, is called an acharya. The position of an acharya is that he executes devotional service with no desire for elevation to a higher position of life. It's interesting because we were just speaking about this morning, about two devotees who have been serving for a very long time without name as such. They have a name that I don't want to give them away, obviously. So just the point is, they've just continued to serve for many years, and this reminds me of them, because it's like, if I've understood it correctly, those people have understood the purport, as it were, or the essence of this movement or this path, which is to sincerely apply oneself and just do the needful, and serve, and just have that mood of service, as opposed to getting involved in any other business, as it were. And they serve for a very long time, I think like 20-30 years, and only now they're getting initiated. And even then they were a little bit, are you sure? I don't think so, because they didn't see themselves like, yeah, of course we should. What are you talking about? It wasn't like that. So it feels like those people set a very good example of steadiness and the mood of just, we just get on with it.
Nice. Should we read the next paragraph?
Okay.
The highest perfectional Brahman is the Vaishnava. A Vaishnava who knows the science of the absolute truth but is not able to preach such knowledge to others is described as being in the lower stage. One who not only understands the principles of the science of God but can also preach is in the second stage. And one who not only can preach but who also sees everything in the absolute truth and the absolute truth in everything is in the highest class of Vaishnavas. Excuse me. It is mentioned here that a Vaishnava is already a Brahmana. In fact, the highest stage of Brahminical perfection is reached when one becomes a Vaishnava. So, yeah, this can spark disagreements, I imagine, but we know that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivedanta Thakur themselves, in their times, which was mid to late 1800s, battled very heavily against this Smarta Brahmin principle, where the Smarta Brahmins felt that it was only if you're born in a Brahmin family could you perform Brahmin activities and da-da-da-da. And to that end, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, well, actually it even goes back to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I was just hearing some pastimes from Chaitanya Charitamrita this morning about how when Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Haridas Thakur, and Mukunda all went to the house of Advaita Acharya to take prasadam, Haridas Thakur said, no, he was invited by Lord Chaitanya to sit and take prasad with him and Lord Nityananda. And Haridas Thakur said, no, I am of low class person, so therefore I'll sit outside and take just a palmful of prasad. And so, there was a whole commentary by Srila Prabhupada about this culture that was around at that time. So Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, Saraswati Thakur, they all have had to deal with this. Of course, coming up in the West, we don't experience it so much, but when interacting in India, you see that it's still very, very prominent. It's very prominent part of the mentality that if you're born as a Brahmin, then you're a Brahmin, and that's the highest thing. And someone who's taken up Vaishnav culture, whether they're from India or anywhere else in the world, may not be respected or appreciated just simply because they couldn't have been born in a Brahmin family and they're coming from a Malecha background, although there are many Shastric quotes to substantiate this. So, so it's an interesting topic, and Prabhupada is stating here and citing from Scripture, again, from Lord Kapila Dev, explaining that the topmost person is someone who executes devotional service without expectation of reward. So like that. Anyway, a few thoughts from my side. Anything?
Yeah, that point about Indians and India, not just in India, but caste system and the mood of Brahmana, Vaishya, this, because when I was growing up, and then I guess, it was when I started reading Prabhupada's books more so, and then Prabhupada's breaking down these different divisions, ashrams and that. And then we have someone on the high street where I grew up, and he was quite proud, I'm a Brahmin. And then that he would regularly, and he has a shop, and he'd regularly go and bet on the horses. I think he smoked as well out back. And I was like, Dad, what's that all about, But they don't see it through qualification, through practice. It's, if he's born a Brahmin, then he is a Brahmin. Irrespective of someone who is a so-called lower position. I think I've mentioned this before on this channel, that I had one of my best friends in secondary school. For them, she was considered Shudra class, and some Brahmin, I don't know what the situation was, some person who happened to be Brahmin, some event they had in their home came in, and then she was telling me at school the next day how hurt her mum and dad, and she felt as well. She didn't understand it so much, but because they walked in and they walked out, because their mood was, oh, hold on, you know, because you can tell by the surnames as well what people are. So, but you're this, so you're, and they actually walked out in the mood of, but I'm Brahmin and you're Shudra. And I was like, oh my God, you know. And what that does for someone, we were in secondary school, we're young, the impressions it builds about culture and this, and you know, and the Brahmins, as it were, it's very damaging. Very damaging. So I was very surprised someone would do that.
Yeah, you start to develop a disrespect for the culture.
Yes.
Not understanding, I mean, that there's meant to be respect amongst all of them, as the analogy of the body, you know, the legs, the belly, the arms, and the head. You need all the parts, the faculties to really function fully and be successful. So there has to be a respect from the head for the legs, from the head to the arms, from the head to the belly, and vice versa. Otherwise, without respect, the whole system breaks down, and it just becomes a caste system, and that's not what it is. It's meant to be Varna Ashram, Chatur Varnam Maya Shrishtam, Guna Karma Vibhagashaha, Guna and Karma, that according to one's qualities and according to one's activities, which means that a Brahmin can be acting worse than a Shudra, and a Shudra can be elevated to the platform above a Brahmin by becoming a Vaishnava, so like that.
Okay, text 33. Therefore, I do not find a greater person than he who has no interest outside of mine, and who therefore engages and dedicates all his activities and all his life, everything unto me without cessation. Purport. In this verse, the word Sama Darshana means that he no longer has any separate interest. The devotee's interests and the Supreme Personality of Godhead's interests are one. For example, Lord Chaitanya, in the role of a devotee, also preached the same philosophy. He preached that Krishna is the worshipful Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that the interest of his pure devotees is the same as his own. So this point Prabhupada makes, that the devotee has no separate interest. The devotee's interest and the Supreme Personality of Godhead's interests are one. That has to be understood, that it doesn't mean I have become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but my interests are one. A simple way to understand that is, if you get married, you don't become that other person, you don't merge into that person, but it's quite natural that due to companionship and compatibility, we take on the interest or the mood and the way someone else is. But it doesn't mean you lose yourself or it shouldn't mean you should lose yourself as a person, ladies.
Men.
But that's a sort of basic example of what that means. Or with friends, and you get friends and then you're like, they do that, and you become one in interest, but you're not one in person, as it were. So it's an important point though, that devotees' interest becomes one with the Lord. It doesn't mean that they lose that individuality to become one with the Lord.
Sometimes Mayavad philosophers, due to a poor fund of knowledge, define the word Samadarshanat to mean that a devotee should see himself as one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is foolishness. When one thinks himself one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no question of serving him. When there is service, there must be a master. Three things must be present for there to be service: the master, the servant, and the service. That's the basic principles of bhakti. There's Ishvara, Jiva, and Bhakti, which means the service. Here it is clearly stated that he who has dedicated his life, all his activities, his mind, and his soul, everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord is considered to be the greatest person. Well, there you go, that, because Bob already covered the whole oneness principle, but that last part, if one who has dedicated his or her life to and all their activities, their mind and their soul, everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord is considered to be the greatest person. So, of course, this isn't something we can just jump straight to. It's a gradual process. In the beginning, we may want to just, abandon everything, and that may be in a neophyte understanding of what it means to sacrifice or rather engage your activities and your mind and your soul. We may misunderstand that using our job or using our talents or using our family situation or using our acquaintances or whatever it may be, our disabilities or our anxieties, they may also need to be used in service. I was reading something the other day where someone was talking about different qualifications for engaging our nature in the service of the Lord. One of them was that sometimes the apparent mistakes or sometimes the apparent worst things that have happened to us can become the greatest gifts for engaging in the service of the Lord, because someone who's had something apparently terrible happen to them becomes a great proponent of consoling or consulting or encouraging someone who also has that happen to them. So, who better than a former alcoholic or drug addict or something like that to be able to relate to people who are currently struggling with that, or someone who's a lady who maybe has lost a child, to be able to console a woman who's lost a child. So like this, sometimes our ability to serve and dedicate ourselves in service to Krishna means that we also have to use those things that have happened to us that don't appear to be gifts, but we have to see Krishna has gifted us with that so that we can again use it in his service. Hare Krishna.
Yes, true. Survivors, Kali Yuga survivors, trying to become devotees.
Okay, sounds like a movie.
Right, next paragraph. The word akatu means without any sense of proprietorship. Everyone wants to act as the proprietor of his actions so that he can enjoy the result. A devotee, however, has no such desire. He acts because the personality of Godhead wants him to act in a particular way. He has no personal motive. When Lord Chaitanya preached Krishna consciousness, it was not with the purpose that people would call him Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rather, he preached that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and should be worshipped as such. A devotee who is the most confidential servant of the Lord never does anything for his personal account, but does everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. It is clearly stated, therefore, Mai Sanyasta Karmana. The devotee works, but he works for the Supreme. It is also stated, Mai Arpit Atmana. He gives his mind unto me. These are the qualifications of a devotee who, according to this verse, is accepted as the highest of all human beings. Interesting. Devotee. I was just reading in another book that the greatness of Arjuna was to fight, and many people have issues with this, what they see as an interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita, that no, it's a fight within, or it's the Bhagavad Gita is a book of non-violence, which don't make sense because it takes place on a battlefield where God is telling his student, kill everyone. But his greatness was that, not that he didn't fight. It wasn't even that, Arjuna didn't want to fight. Krishna made him fight.
Krishna convinced him that fighting was the better option, and he allowed himself to be influenced by Krishna. Krishna didn't make him do anything. Sorry, I have to disagree with you. Correct that.
Thank you for that interruption. And I
You're
forgot
welcome.
what I was going to say.
Well, you were reading in a book that some people have issues with
day.
Arjuna being a fighter.
So his greatness was that he did what Krishna wanted him to do. That's my point.
Yes.
So the act of violence and the fighting, which he wasn't inclined to do, the irony is it made him the great devotee that he is.
Yeah.
And he's remembered for because of that act of doing what Krishna desired.
Surrender.
So hold on, I don't. Yes, surrender. So, so just as Prabhupada is saying here that a devotee has no other desire, he acts to please Krishna. That was my point.
And whatever is pleasing to Krishna, even if it causes me distress or anxiety, as Srimati Radharani prays, then that becomes the greatest of happiness for me.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, what?
I mean, we have to get there.
What does that mean? We have to
Yeah,
get
let's
there?
be honest.
Yeah, what you're saying is, that may be true, but we may not be on that platform yet. Oh, absolutely.
You have to get
Right.
there. So initially you might be like, what's going on? What are you doing?
It's a process. Like, in that same situation, Srimati Radharani says like that, if bringing you pleasure causes me pain, then that pain becomes the greatest of my pleasures. And then I remember a lecture Shiva Ramaraj was explaining, and I'm pretty sure this specific pastime may not be discussed there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but that what I just said was, but Radharani used to have to practice going to see Krishna in the night, and she would practice that during the day because she would have to walk barefoot because she climbs out her window, and she would have to tiptoe through the forest. But the forest is full of sharp rocks and twigs and thorns, and if she steps on them, then she might go, ah! And so he was explaining that she used to practice during the day walking on these sharp sticks and stones and twigs with thorns, and basically making her feet tough so that she could actually endure that tribulation or challenge to meet Krishna, so that she could bring him pleasure. So she induced, confirmed by, you hear the parrot, so she, suffered pain for herself so that she could bring Krishna greater pleasure. So in the same way, as you're saying, we may not be there yet, but Krishna is offering us the opportunity to go through challenging and difficult situations so that we become tough-footed, yeah. We become a little thick-skinned, recognizing that the material energy is just going to perpetually try to convince us of something else. But actually, the truth is that we're simply Jivara Swarupoi Krishna and Nichadas. We're simply servants of Krishna and eternally spiritual beings who are just here to serve Krishna, and that's it. Well, we have to get there. But we have a great example, and who is the best example of this?
Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, Srila Prabhupada, ki jai. So, yeah, just a glorification of Srila Prabhupada. So inspirational what he sacrificed and went through in order to give the world an opportunity at the topmost teachings. We heard, like, what is a Vaishnava? It's the topmost level of existence for a being in this world. And Srila Prabhupada specifically sacrificed so much to come and give that capacity, ability, wisdom, knowledge to the entire universe without discrimination at all. He didn't just come looking for the brahmanas, right? In fact, he went to the land of the Malechas to elevate them, and that, as he said, was his greatest miracle. I have turned hippies into happies. Any glorification you'd like to offer His Divine Grace?
I think you said it all.
Well, amazing.
On behalf of the whole world.
We have become one. One in mind and heart.
But
Okay.
yeah, we should read. I mean, you know, not many devotees and I haven't read his biography, and
Oh man.
so yeah, it's very important to dip in and keep Prabhupada in the center of his ISKCON and his movement. And
Yeah, so Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita, please read it. If you are intimidated by, you know, 2 big thick books or 1 big thick book, whichever versions you get, then you can read Your Ever a Well-Wisher, which is an abridged version and is also very amazing. Or you can watch memories or listen to lectures. In whatever way you can, don't forget our founder, Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Remember him especially today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.